I keep hearing about these retro handheld things. Apparently you can use them to play old retro games like Super Nintendo and Game Boy and PlayStation and stuff. I love those old games. I really should get one of these things. This one looks pretty good. I guess I'll get that. Alright, wow, that's pretty nice. Dang, I hope it's not too complicated. I'm not good at figuring this stuff out. Well, here goes. So you're trying to tell me that you don't use interpolation shaders because you're worried about input latency? Oh my god, that's what run ahead and hard GPU sync are for. Come on, this is pretty basic stuff. I thought everyone knew that. Hey there, how you doing? I'm TechDweeb, welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video today. I think everyone has an experience like this. You want to buy something that you don't know a lot about. Maybe you're looking to buy your first espresso machine or a stereo system for your car or a waterproof lightweight hiking shoe for ultra marathons or whatever bullcrap it is. And you go online and there's just too much information. People just getting into the nitty-gritty details about their complaints about the various options, and when all you really want is someone to tell you what is a good one. You don't need the best choice or the most amazing thing based on your specific needs, because that's a big complicated answer. You just want a simple, straightforward, if you buy this, it'll work for you. I think it's easy for us uber nerds in the retro handheld emulation community to take for granted that not everyone out there knows about retro game doodad stuff. What kinds of games run on different chipsets, what the different pluses and minuses are for the different firmware options, and what stuff about the devices and the controls are important to know about, and what stuff doesn't matter. It's easy to forget that lots of the stuff that we're all experts in is kind of hard-earned knowledge, only graspable when you've wasted half your life configuring RetroArch, like I have. I remember when I was trying to decide on my first retro emulation handheld, how hard it was to figure out which one to get. And really, I just wanted to know what a good one was, just so I could just get that, knowing that this wasn't one of the bad ones. Luckily, these days, most of the ones are good ones. And almost everything these days leads to a pretty darn good experience. Which brings us to the doodad of the day. The Powkiddy RGB10X. This guy isn't a top-of-the-line device. It doesn't do everything perfectly, but what's here is frickin' solid. It has good build quality, great controls, a form factor that is both pocket-friendly and comfortable to use, and the price is totally right for what it is. The biggest crime it commits is that it doesn't do anything fresh and new for us in the emulation doodad world. But for someone new to the hobby or someone who doesn't have a device in this kind of form factor, this might be the best choice out there if they need what this does. And today I'm gonna show you what it does, show you why I like it, play a heck ton of games on it, and I'll be bold enough to make the case for why this is a great beginner handheld for a retro doodad noob. And also I'm gonna open this can of root beer, but not yet. I don't want to give away all the best content in the first few minutes after all. Yeah, I know, I'm such a tease. And I need to mention that this Powkiddy RGB10X was sent to me by LitNXT. They sell this, and you should buy it from them if you want one. And if you don't, then you shouldn't. The box is yellow, and in there we get the doodad and an SD card, and under there you get a USB-C cable and a word paper. Wow, well, what an amazing unboxing experience. My excitement is bountiful. When it comes to the specs, they're not super interesting. Stop me if you've heard this one. We've got the RK3326 chip, 1GB of RAM, 3.5-inch 640 by 480 IPS screen, 64GB system card, 2800 mAh battery, no HDMI, no Wi-Fi, and no Bluetooth. These specs aren't exciting, but they get the job done for a ton of retro games, so let's just give it a chance to show us what it can do. On the front, we have a screen, we get a D-pad in the upper configuration, face buttons, a single analog stick, start and select down there, and a minus and plus button, which are for setting hotkeys, and a single front-facing speaker. Up top, we have inline bumpers and triggers, and a USB-C hole for charging, and a reset button, volume up and down, and a power button. On the left side, we have a system card hole, and on the right, we have a games card hole. Underneath, we have what look like dual downward firing stereo speakers, but they're not. They're just holes. Weird. And a USB-C hole for attaching peripherals. And a headphone hole. Nothing around back except this super cheesy, cheap looking X design with the Powkiddy logo inside it. Oh god, why'd they do that? Alright, so now we get to talk about the good stuff. I absolutely love the hand feel of this thing. It's not some wild new design, it's just a great size with a nice plain rectangle shape and rounded edges that make it super comfy to hold. It reminds me a lot of the RG35XXH, better known as the Zazbizzle. And that's a good thing because the Zazbizzle is also super comfy. The shape just works so well. The size makes it feel like a big, comfortable device. The controls are perfectly placed, the bumpers and the triggers feel just right, everything is where it should be. And despite feeling big and comfy, it's still super pocket friendly, thanks to the rounded edges and the recessed stick. It slides in and out of my pocket like an olive through hot mashed potatoes. Hey, don't knock it till you try it, alright? One thing that I know lots of people are gonna whine about, because that's what you people do best, is the size of the bezel on the screen. But I don't mind it. I never had issues with big screen bezels as long as they look good. I think that it actually looks kinda neat here. It's kinda like a little TV screen on your device. It kind of feels retro almost. Actually, there's a lot about this thing that feels retro. I dig the SNES color vibe on the model that I have here. The small details like the debossed buttons and the Game Boy style speaker give it some retro flair too. Yeah, you know what? Now that I'm saying this, it almost reminds me of the Retroid Pocket 2S, which I freaking love. That's one of my favorite handhelds ever. This feels like the "we have the RP2S at home" version of that thing. And I don't mean that as an insult, but because this thing is way cheaper than a 2S, so the fact that it kind of captures some of that RP2S magic is impressive. The controls on this bad boy are actually excellent. The face buttons are nice and big, and they have the perfect feel. They have a nice firmness to them, and they're easy to press, and they feel good. This is exactly how I like my buttons. They're like little pieces of candy for my thumbs. The D-pad is amazing. It's a tad on the loose and mushy side, but the shape and the thumb feel and the inputs are just awesome. I can pull off all my special moves in fighting games, no problem, no false diagonals, exactly what you want out of a D-pad. The bumpers and triggers are inline, which I love for pocket-friendly devices. They have a great shape, easy to push with a soft click that's not too loud, so you won't wake up your cat while you're gaming at 3 a.m. We get these same weird plus and minus buttons as the V10, but here they don't need to be used for volume hotkeys because we have dedicated volume buttons. Nice touch. The stick is fine, a slight cardinal snapping, but not too much. For the stuff that this plays well, this is a fine stick. Plus it's recessed, so it's flush with the rest of the controls, giving it the perfect pocket potential. Freaking well done, Powkiddy. I'm not used to seeing a company get this much right on a budget device. The screen is basically the same one that we get on all these budget devices, like the Miu Mini Plus and the Amberlick doodads. It's 3.5 inches, right in the Goldilocks zone. Not big, but not small, just right kind of thing. It's got a 640 by 480 resolution, so you get some really good scaling options for most of your retro favorite stuff, although widescreen stuff will have black bars. And it's good picture quality, bright, clear, and sharper than my mom's criticisms of my life choices, which are pretty darn sharp. Now, the sound, it kind of sucks. I mean, it's okay, I guess, but it's just one single mono speaker at the bottom right. I'm more okay with that on vertical devices, but on horizontal devices, my brain expects some more stereo action, Still, it's good enough and it's loud enough to get the job done. And I wanted to mention that this device has headphone compatibility issues, just like the V10. This pair of headphones sounded quiet and weird, but this one worked fine. So keep that in mind. It's not a huge issue because I do have a pair that works fine, but I wanted to mention it because that's my job. The system on here is amazing. Powkiddy has been shipping their devices with ArcOS out of the box, which is an amazing implementation of Emulation Station. It's easy to use, it looks amazing, it has a ton of customizability, and some advanced features under the hood if you like to tinker. I can't explain everything that's great about ArcOS here, but I can say that you will have a great experience using it and have all the options that you need to customize the experience. The device does come with games, and the game lists are really good. Very solid, organized ROM sets with a few weird missteps, like how NES is only a top 100 games, but then in the Famicom section they have all the games, except except there is also foreign language games in there. Many systems are perfect, like Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Super Nintendo, Sega Mega Drive, Game Gear, all great sets there. They have all the Neo Geo arcade games and the Capcom Play System arcade games, but then the MAME set isn't complete. And they have the dumb file names instead of the game names. And for the higher end systems, they managed to get quite a bit of stuff on here. They skipped Dreamcast, but we have lots of PS1, lots of N64, and a little bit of Nintendo DS and PSP. And I should mention that there are no Mario or Pokemon games on here. So Powkiddy is obviously trying to keep their nose clean. So overall, it's just kind of a mixed bag. Mostly good, which is good. And when it comes to gaming, there's not going to be a ton of surprises here. This thing uses the RK3326 chipset, which is very well known and tested to death at this point, so I'm not going to go into like benchmarks or anything. But I can tell you that generally you will have no problem playing everything up to PS1. All that older retro stuff is going to play great, especially so here because the screen and the controls are solid. You get all the best customizations through Emulation Station and RetroArch, and you can use interpolation shaders to smooth out the pixels for systems that don't scale well. For PS1, we have the power to play all these games, even with enhanced resolution, to enhance the resolution. And then anything beyond that will be hit or miss. Nintendo DS is generally okay, but the most demanding games won't run with perfect performance. And also we're on a single screen here, so you'll be doing screen swapping shenanigans. It's fine for lots of games though. N64 is pretty hit or miss. Easy games will run well, hard games won't. Same thing with PSP, although with PSP you'll be dealing with letterboxing on the top and the bottom of the screen, so don't buy this thing expecting to play a bunch of PSP. Buy this to play the retro stuff. Atari, NES, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis, TurboGrafx 16, Arcade, and PS1. If that's what you're here for, you'll have an amazing time. And if you're here for the high-end stuff, probably better to spend more and get something more powerful like the Retroid Pocket 2S. I mean, look, you're not going to get everything you want in life. You're not going to get a great job and a nice house and a girlfriend. Anyone who says they did is lying. And you're not going to get a device that has a great screen, great build, great controls, great performance, and all the extra features, and also is super cheap. Maybe we'll get there someday, but we're not there yet. The biggest missteps that the Powkiddy RGB10X makes is that it doesn't have great performance for the high-end stuff, and it lacks extra features like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and video out. But really, if you want that stuff, you'll need to be prepared to pay for the privilege, because nothing good comes free, except maybe advice from me. And even then, you're kind of getting what you pay for. What this little guy doesn't compromise on are the important things. The screen is good, the controls are great, it has an amazing operating system that gives you all the tools you need. If you're here for retro games, which I assume you are because you're watching a dweeb flap his hands on YouTube and ramble about retro handhelds, if you want to dive into all the classic stuff up to PS1, then this is just a great device for all that older stuff. You don't compromise on what really matters, how these games work, how they look, and how they play. It gets all the important stuff right. It's not the best at anything that it does, but it does it all well and at a price that'll leave some money left over to support TechDweeb on Patreon, as we all should be doing, right? It's available at different prices depending on where you get it, although keep in mind that you'll often have to pay for shipping from different distributors, so generally the price is kind of similar no matter where you get it. Lid NXT was nice enough to send me this one, so it's my job to tell you to buy it from them. I get a small bonus when you use my link, which helps me keep the lights on and the root beer flowing, so thanks for that if you do. And that brings us to the end. Yet another retro doodad review in the bag. I wasn't expecting to like this device really, but it was a pleasant surprise. Like when you think your mashed potatoes are plain, but then you hit an olive and suddenly it's flavor party. Click the thumbs up button if you liked the video, or don't if you didn't. That's it from me. I'm TechDweeb, thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Oh my god, I forgot to open the root beer. I'm sorry. So sorry. I'll open it right now. Oh crap, my camera battery is about